All right, here we are with a mini mobility series. We're focusing on the lower body today, specifically hips and how that pertains to your squat. So when we're looking at our squat, we're just here with a pretty natural base, feet underneath our hips. Whatever feels comfortable to you, doesn't have to be anything fancy. We're just focusing on a body weight squat today. As we squat, there are a couple positions that we hit at our hips, knees, ankles, and those are the things that we're going to focus on today. So this first ability to sit my butt back and bend forward at the hips, this is hip flexion. As we get a little bit deeper, we get into more pronounced hip flexion. We have a little bit of external rotation at the hip. We have a little bit of abduction with my legs coming away from the midline. And then we have a bit of dorsiflexion down here at our ankles. All of those things we're going to hit a little bit today just to make the squat feel a little bit smoother. So before we get started focusing on those things, we're just going to start in a squat, see what it feels like. So right away, I just want you to find that natural position. Just line up as you normally would to squat. Like I said, my feet are a little bit wider than my hips. So are hers, but whatever feels comfortable to you, just pick that position. And we're just going to go through a couple reps of a nice, easy body weight squat at your own pace. I don't want you focusing on anything right now other than how does the squat feel. So I'm going to cross my hands in front of me. You could be out in front at your side. You can pretend there's a barbell. We're just going to squat down and keep that same cadence coming back up. We're going 4 more. We're going 5 reps all in total. Nothing fast. Noticing if anything does crack, if it feels uncomfortable, if you can only go this far. If you do have a nice deep squat like we are working with right now, do your knees collapse in as you come down? Do they collapse in as you try to push back up? Can you keep them out, knees more or less over toes? Just all things that I want you to kind of pay attention to that we'll come back to today. So that should feel pretty nice. Kind of get you warmed up now that we've talked about some different positions. We're going to go ahead and focus on them. So right away, I want us to go down into the 90-90 position. Pretty classic position here, but we're going to set up much as the name suggests with our front leg in 90 degrees and our back leg in 90 degrees. So both of us are set up here. The front shin and back thigh are in parallel lines running in this direction. And my front thigh and my back shin are in parallel lines running towards the front here. If this doesn't feel comfortable in the back leg, that's okay. We're not too focused on it. So if it has to come in a little bit, that's okay. And as you notice, as I did that, kind of set that bony part of my butt back towards the ground. We're focusing on this front leg. So if this feels okay to you, you feel a little bit of stretch in that side, hip, back, into your hamstring area, you'll feel it out that yourself. You can stay here. If you don't feel too much of a stretch, I'm going to slide my knee out to the side and make that sensation a little bit more intense. I feel that a little bit more through the left side of my butt. From here, now my 90 degrees is distorted. That's okay. This is mimicking the bottom part of the squat. So if you look at my leg in this position, and I just rotate it up to here, this is that very bottom part of my squat. I'm just working on it in a slightly different position out of the base 90-90. So from here, I want you to fill this out. We're going to take a couple breaths, just coming in through your nose and out through your nose. In through your nose, out through your nose. We'll go 3 more breaths there. Keep that cadence. As you're breathing, noticing if you can get a little bit deeper in that stretch, maybe you have to lean your chest forward a little bit, trying to keep that back butt close to the ground, trying to keep that back 90 degrees. It's relatively as sticky as possible, stuck to the ground where we had it before we started breathing. You should take about 1 more breath here as you find that final stretch position. And from here, we're going to get into our work sets. So now I want you to imagine that I just tucked a scale underneath that front shin. Our goal right now is going to make that scale heavier and heavier and heavier as I cue you to do so. So now we're tucking that scale underneath our shin. We want to apply a nice even force right through the middle of the shin onto that scale. I'm going to ask you to start to push that shin down into the scale, into the ground, make it a little bit heavier. So right away, just give me a light effort. Just start to push that shin into the ground. The rest of our body doesn't move from that stretch position. We're just pushing at the shin. Now give me a little bit more. Think of this as like a 50% effort, making that scale heavier. Just pushing that shin a little bit harder into the ground. You'll feel that butt starting to work. You might feel the inner thigh starting to work a little bit. Give me a little bit more, 75% of your max effort push. And take it all the way up to 100% and hold here. You should feel that both your knee is trying to drive down towards the ground and your ankle. A nice even force all the way through that shin. Pushing the shin right down on that scale, making it heavy for another 3 seconds. 2, 1. Without moving the rest of your body, try to hover that front leg nice and flat up off the ground. The whole shin should come up, not leading at the ankle or leading at the knee like this, but trying to keep that shin nice and flat. So pretend that put a string here on your ankle and a string here on your knee, and they're both pulling that shin up nice and high. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly set it back down on the ground. Good. Now you should have a bit of an idea. We have 2 more rounds of that before we go ahead and do it on the other side. So same thing. If you feel like maybe you got a little bit deeper into the stretch, just lean a little bit deeper. Maybe you can put that knee out to the side a little bit more. Whatever feels comfortable to you as we go with round 2 here. So same thing. We're going to start pushing that shin right from the middle of our shin down into the ground. Light effort first. Slowly, slowly, slowly turn up that effort. Give me about 50%. All the while really trying to send that force right through the middle of your shin. Turn it up. Give me about 75%. And turn it up the rest of the way. Give me 100% effort pushing that whole shin down into the ground. But keep this 100% effort. I know that this can be very tiring, but try to maintain this 100% effort the whole time that we're here. For another 4, 3, 2, 1. Without moving the rest of your body, that whole shin is trying to hover up, 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 up off the ground. And hold it here. Don't lean backwards. Try not to lean to the side, but try to pull that shin up off the ground. Remember, those strings are attached to our ankle and our knee. Trying to pull that shin as evenly as possible. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and set it back down. Good. You should really feel that inner thigh working now. We have 1 more round here before we switch to the other side. Same thing as the last round. If you feel like maybe you can get a little bit deeper, slide your knee out a little bit farther, please do so. But try to maintain some level of comfort here. There should be no sharp pains in any of these positions. So it should feel like you're working hard, but it shouldn't be painful at any time. So we have 1 final round here. Same thing. We'll ramp up a little bit faster. You should be a little bit more comfortable with that 100% effort. So we'll just get there a little bit quicker this time. So now we're going to start with that light effort, starting to push that front shin down into the ground. The rest of our body is making solid contact with the floor. Give me a little bit more effort at 50%. Turn it up a little bit quicker. Give me that 75% effort. And give me your final 100%. Good. Hold this 100% nice and even for another 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and your final hover. Take that shin up off the ground and hold it there. I know this one is hard, but please try to hover it up off the ground. Keep that foot from touching. For another 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and set it back down. Before we move to the opposite side, I want to give you a chance to move around a little bit. So for this, I'm going to clasp my hands up in front of my chest. We are now pretty comfortable in this 90-90 position. So I want all of these points of contact, every inch of you that is touching the floor right now, I want to remain there. It is now effectively glued to the floor. From here, I am going to lower myself into an active stretch. So instead of using my arms to pull myself down into a stretch, I'm going to use my muscles to pull me down, much as Michelle is doing. All of these points of contact, my legs, my feet, my ankles, are stuck to the ground, my butt, if it's there. And from here, I'm just going to take a breath and start to use my muscles, actively pulling myself down towards the ground, pull my chest down to feel a nice stretch. Nice and slow. When I can't go any lower for fear of pulling my body up off the ground, I'm going to allow myself to pull back up to this upright position. You might feel a little bit of crampiness going on. Try to breathe through it. At the top, take a couple breaths here to regain your composure. And we're going to go ahead and flip over to the other side. You can get there however you want to get there. But we have that whole session to repeat on the opposite side. So we'll set up a 90-90 here. Same thing, we're focusing on the front leg. If it's too uncomfortable, which you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, you just did a lot of work on what is now your back leg. Find a position that is comfortable. That means tucking that back foot in a little bit, that's okay. The front leg, once again, is in external rotation. If this feels fine and you feel a stretch here, that's okay. If you want to explore with your knee out to the side a little bit, you can most certainly do so. Just as we did on the first side, I'm going to take a couple seconds to breathe here. In through your nose. And out through your nose. And we'll inhale. And exhale. You have about 3 more breaths just at that pace. Inhale and exhale through your nose as you explore this stretch. So as you're breathing, figure out if you can lean forward a little bit. Find that stretch that you felt on the first side. Once again, that's comfortable, not painful, so stabbing, but a nice stretch sensation. Once we get there, you are now effectively stuck. We have 3 rounds, just like we did on the opposite side. We're going to start by tucking that scale once again right under the middle of our shin and starting to apply that force downwards into the floor, but with all the force coming through the middle of our shin. We don't want most of it coming down through our ankle, allowing our knee to come up. And we don't want most of it coming through our knee, allowing our foot to come up off the floor. But think of applying a nice, even force all the way from ankle to knee, with most of that force coming right through the middle of your shin. So here we go. We'll go first round. We're starting to push through the middle of our shin with an easy effort. Just a light push into the ground, starting to glue that shin to the mat in front of you. Turning it up, give me about a 50% effort, just getting a little bit harder every time we turn it up. Go to 75%. And take it all the way up to 100% and hold this here. The first round always takes a little bit of time to fill out, but try to maintain this 100% push the whole time that you're here. You're only here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Without the rest of your body moving at all, try to hover that front leg up off the ground, trying to keep that shin as flat as possible. It might not look very flat. I know that mine even doesn't right now. But you want to try to keep that shin in a nice flat line with your ankle and knee in a relatively straight line as possible. And you're here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly set it back down. Good. Revisit that initial stretch. Then you might be working a little bit hard and got out of that stretch a little bit. Settle back down into it. If you can sink a little deeper, slide your knee out a little bit more, make those adjustments every round. But we have 2 more, just the same thing that we just did. So we're going to start by applying another light push, that light push with the front of our shin into the ground. Increase that effort just a little bit, bringing that shin even harder down into the ground in front of you. Give me a little bit more effort. This is about 75% of that max effort. And turn it up the rest of the way. Give me an all-out 100% effort here. Once again, that force coming through the middle of your shin as evenly as you can get it. A nice even force from your ankle all the way up to your knee. And we're going to flip that switch and try to hover that whole shin up off the ground now. It should come up, even if it only comes barely a centimeter, that's okay. If it doesn't come up at all, that's fine too. You can feel all of that stuff working in your inner thigh. Just keep it squeezing. Your leg might not come up, but it also might on your second or third or fourth attempt. So just keep asking it to come up. Keep engaging all of those things in your inner thigh. And hold here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly release back down to the mat. Good, we have one final round here. Chase that initial stretch again. Our final round, one stretch, and then we're going to revisit that squat that we spent some time in at the beginning. So our final round here. Once again, we'll do this one a little bit quicker than the last two. We're going to start by pushing down that shin into the ground at a light effort. Give me a little bit more effort here, turn it up to about 50%, starting to push that shin a little bit harder down into the floor in front of you. Maybe about 75% effort. And all the way up to 100, and you're here for 10 seconds. Hold this 100%. Good, keep holding for another 5, 3, 2, 1, and your final hover up off the ground. I know that this is hard, but you've done 5 of them already. So just keep pulling that up, that shin up off the ground. Hover it here for another 7, 5, 3, 2, 1, and release. Before we go anywhere, we have one more active stretch. You can clasp your hands out in front of you. And once again, we're using our muscles to pull ourselves down into a stretch, not just flopping, not using our hands to pull us, but gluing all of these points of contact, my ankles, feet, knees, shins, thighs, everything that's touching the ground now, I want it to stay there. You'll feel that it starts to engage your butt just a little bit. You'll feel that it might start to engage different parts of your legs. Try to keep that engagement as you actively fold forward, as deep as you can get. Don't forget to breathe, nice and slow. When you fold forward as far as you can, before you feel like you're going to lose that engagement with the floor, start to pull yourself back up nice and slow, all the way up to the top. Very nice. And from here, now we're going to get up off the floor and revisit our squat again. We have another 5. But this time, I want you to think about squatting very much like you just did that last round of the stretch. Instead of just allowing your body weight to collapse down, I want it to be nice and controlled. I want you to start engaging, notably, your hamstrings, maybe your calves, digging your feet into the ground. I'm pretending that I'm spreading out this mat in front of me first, making good contact with the mat, gripping with my toes, starting from my calves up, a nice pull into this squat. So my calves are engaged, my hamstrings are now engaged, starting to pull me down as deep as I can go. It's nice and controlled until I get as deep as I can get. At the bottom, a slight pause. Push your knees out. Keep that slight push out as you push your body back up. Good, all the way up to your lockout. You have 4 more here at your own pace, but these are a little bit slower than they were in the beginning. You can imagine that I've loaded some heavy weight on your back and you have to lower it very slowly. And then you have to push it back up without getting buried under that big, heavy weight. Good. Let's go number 3. Good. At the bottom, notice if your knees are sinking in. If so, slight push out. If it's comfortable, keep them pushed out as you push back up to the top. Whew. Yeah, we're sweating here. 2 more, your final 2. Remember to engage as you squat. This is a very active and intentional squat here. Pulling myself down deeper, lowering myself slowly, trying not to get buried in that heavy weight as I push back up, keeping that same slow pace that I came down with. And final one. Don't forget to breathe. Take a breath at the top, a breath at the bottom. Remember to breathe, that's very important. Good, smooth transition from up to down, down to up. Very nice, take a breath at the top. If you feel like you need to shake out a little bit, shake out. We are going to focus a little bit more from a different position on that bottom part of our squat with our knees coming away from our midline. Notice spending some time in abduction. So for this, I'm going to ask that you sit up in a half kneeling position. My hips are evenly distributed. My weight is evenly distributed through my hips on my back leg and on my front leg. That means I'm not leaning over in any direction. But my hips and legs are creating kind of like railroad tracks, parallel lines in front of me, not in front of each other, and not too crazy out to the side. From here, I'm going to post my hands up in front of me. My knee is placed right outside my shoulder. So for our purposes, we're going to push and pull much like we did in the last round. I want you to imagine that I just stuck a balloon in between your knee and your shoulder, and we're going to try to squeeze that balloon by bringing our knee into shoulder, or to let it go by pulling my knee away from my shoulder. If this doesn't feel like much of a stretch to you, you might feel a little bit of a stretch on this outside of your leg. You can move your foot out. Just take little tiny steps out away from your body. And now you'll notice that there is a huge gap in between my arm and my leg. To remedy that, I'm just going to bend my elbow. So maybe now my balloon is between my shin and my elbow instead of up here, tucked between my knee and my shoulder. Make sense? Okay. From here, I'm going to find whatever position is comfortable. You notice I'm going a little bit wider, so my arm is bent into my leg. This is my block. I'm going to tuck that imaginary balloon in between my shin and my elbow because that is where I need to be set up so that I feel a stretch. And we're going 3 rounds just like we did the last time. We're going to push our shin or knee into our shoulder, elbow, arm, wherever we're making contact. But my arm is not moving. It is now a block. It's stuck in this position. I'm going to squeeze that shin, knee into my elbow, shoulder, arm. Squeezing that balloon, just a light effort first. Take it up to about a 50% effort. 75%. And then I want 100% effort, like you're trying to pop that balloon between your leg and your arm. Really pull that shin in towards your arm for another 3, 2, 1, without moving anything else, nothing else in your body. Try to pull that shin away from your arm. Notice that my foot is still firmly planted on the ground. I'm not rolling out to the side of my foot to create this gap. I'm just trying to hover that shin off of my arm now. Good, hold this here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good, just as before. If this opened up a little bit, and maybe you can get a little bit deeper into that lunge, be my guest. But remember that you have to hang out here. So if it's too intense, just stay where you're at. You are the judge of that. So we'll go round 2. Same thing, we're tucking that balloon back between our shin and our arm. And we're going to start to squeeze that balloon, keep it in place, just a light effort first. Good, squeeze it a little bit harder, pushing that shin in towards our arm, but my arm is staying in place. A little bit more of a squeeze between that shin and that arm. And now turn it all the way to 100%. So I'm squeezing, trying to pop that imaginary balloon that I placed between my shin and my upper arm. Good, you're here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Try to cover that shin up off your arm. You'll really feel through your inner thigh. You might feel it on the outside towards your butt a little bit, trying to pull that leg away from your arm. Once again, my foot is still firmly planted on the ground. Here for another 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good, take a breath. One more round here, then we'll switch over to the other side. Adjust as you seem necessary. Just a couple more seconds of work here before we get to the other side. So your final round here, tuck a brand new balloon right between that shin and your elbow, or your knee and your shoulder. Wherever your shin is touching your arm, tuck that imaginary balloon in here, and let's try to pop it. Start with an easy effort. Good, give me a little bit more, 50% of your max. A little bit more, give me 75%. And then we're trying to pop that balloon. Give me 100% squeeze in your hip for 10 seconds. Good, keep squeezing for another 5. For another 3, 2, 1. And your final hover off of your arm. Try to pull that knee out away from your arm as much as you can. Hold it here for another 10. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. All right. We're going to repeat that same thing on your opposite side. And in this position, you can very much see how different the same thing can look from person to person. So if you're set up a little bit closer together, or if you're set out nice and wide like I am, that's totally okay. We're all on a different journey in our squat pattern. So we're going to set up on the opposite side, same thing. Feel it out first. I start with my legs fairly close together. Determine whether or not I have a stretch as I reach down towards the ground. And from there, I move my foot out if I need to until I feel a stretch on this outer side of my thigh. If yours is even farther and you're deeper, you might be down here. Maybe this balloon is now tucked between my upper arm and the lower part of my shin. You'll have to figure that out on your own. So from here, once we find our stretch, remember to breathe as you're doing this. I'm going to find a spot where I feel a decent stretch. And then I'm going to tuck that balloon between my shin and my arm. And we'll work into our first set on this side. I'm going to start pushing that shin into my arm, just a light effort. Start a gentle squeeze. I'll turn it up about 50% of my max. So I need to bring that shin in towards my arm, but my arm is not moving with it. 75%. And give me 100% squeeze and hold this. Trying to squeeze that shin and that arm together. Hold it here. For another 3, 2, 1. And hover that shin off of that arm without rolling onto the outside of your foot. Try to just pull that shin away from the arm. Create a little bit of space in there. You did a very good job at squeezing them together. Now try to create a little bit of space for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you made a bigger gap, when you relax, bring your arm out to match where your leg is naturally resting now. Now you'll notice I have a little bit more bend in my elbow to get me a little bit deeper into that stretch. And we'll go round 2, same thing. We're going to start to push that shin, knee into our elbow, upper arm, shoulder. Just a light effort. Slowly turn it up. Give me about 50% of your max. Keep turning that effort up. We should be approaching about 75%. And all the way up to 100. And hold it here. Try to maintain a nice even 100% for the whole duration of your hold. For another 3, 2, 1. And now peel that shin away from your arm. Good, just creating a small gap between your arm and your shin. I don't need much space, just trying to create a little bit of a gap. Hold it here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good, just like I said on the other side, if you get a little bit deeper into the stretch, maybe it gets a little bit wider. chase it. That's okay, as long as you feel comfortable and it's not a stabbing, sharp, stinging pain. Find that final resting position. We're going for our final round here. One last balloon to pop, tuck it in between your arm and your leg. And we'll start with an easy effort squeeze. Just a small effort, just starting to squeeze that balloon into place. Good, let's turn it up 50%. A little bit quicker, give me up 75. And turn all the way up to your last 100%. Pop that balloon. Good, keep the squeeze. Hold it here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And final, hover that shin away from that arm. Just try to peel it off. Give me a little tiny gap. Hold that there. Don't let that shin come to touch that arm though. Good, you're here for another 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. So we're going to revisit that squat once again. So it should feel a lot nicer as you approach this bottom part of your squat. This is what we just worked independently on either side. We're going to go 3 rounds now, just like we did the last time, but only 3 reps. Allow yourself to set up in a natural squat, whatever feels comfortable to you. But now we're going to actively pull ourselves into the ground. So once again, I'm starting by making that solid contact with my feet, starting to pull myself with my toes, with my calves, with my hamstrings, pull myself back into that squat. Nice and slow, lowering myself as deep as I can at the bottom, noticing if my knees come in. If they do, push them back out a little bit, just like we did in our last round of exercise, pulling our shins away from our arms. Good at the top. Remember to breathe. And let's go with our second rep. Good. And a nice even push on the way back up. It should be the same speed down as it is coming back up. Breathing at the top. And lowering ourselves into our final rep here. Everyone's depth may look a little bit different. Just go as deep as you can control it, and without it being painful. Very nice. We have one more thing to do before we wrap this up. We're going to spend some time with our ankles. So this could be a limiting factor in your squat if you don't have the ability to bring that top of your foot up close to your shin. You'll notice as we get deeper and deeper into the squat, this angle becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, but only if you have that range. So we're going to set up. You can be in this half kneeling, nice and high, just like we were, or more of a combat position. I'm sitting back on that leg now and leaning forward over my ankle. So we'll give you 2 options here. I'm more in this combat position where I can kind of force my knee out over my toe, or you have Michelle here who's doing it more from a half kneeling, a lunge kind of position. So whatever feels comfortable to you. If you need something a lot different and you have a yoga block or a book or something that you can set up along the wall and push into like a traditional calf stretch, you could do that as well. There are many options. From here, we're going to do the same thing that we've been doing, a little push and a little pull. This is very similar to a gas pedal. So I want you to get to that deepest range that you can get. My heel is still on the ground, even as I push this knee forward. So as deep into this as you can get while your whole foot is still making contact with the ground. From here, I'm just going to push my toes down into the ground like I'm pressing on a gas pedal, starting with a light push. Turn it out to about 50%, 75, all the way up to 100. And even though I'm pushing my toes into the ground, my heel is still making contact. I don't want you to push so much that you're elevating that heel up off the ground, but push while maintaining full contact with the bottom of your foot. And now staying in this position, try to pull your toes up off the ground. I want you to try to bring not only your toes, but the top part of your foot So I want my toes to stay flat. But I try to pull the whole front of my foot up off the ground. You'll feel this working the front part of your shin. And I want you to relax. Okay, maybe you get a little bit deeper. Yep, if you have to adjust, she's going to follow me in the half combat. And we're going to repeat the same thing. So we're going to start to push our toes like we're pressing down a gas pedal. So you're just driving, getting a little bit of gas. You're going 5 miles an hour. Give me a little bit more. Good, give me about 75%. We're speeding down the highway. Let's go all the way up to 100%. Pedal to the middle and hold it here. Good. Keep this 100%. You might focus in the back of your calves. That's what we want. And without moving the rest of your body, try to bring your toes up off the ground. Once again, try to keep my toes straight, but imagine that I'm peeling that whole front of my foot up off the ground. You're really feeling this in the front part of your shin. And hold this here for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. One more round here, and then we'll switch it over to the other side. So same thing, we're going to ramp this one up a little bit faster. So we're just going to start with that easy effort, a little bit of gas. Turn it up a little bit faster, though. Give me a little bit more, 50% of your max. 75% and all the way up to 100 and hold it here for 10. Good, keep this 100% in for another 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and pull those toes up off the ground. My whole foot is trying to lift from my toes back to my heel, trying to make the space smaller between my shin and the top of my foot for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And we'll switch it over to the opposite side and just feel it out. This side may or may not be the same as the other side. So just find the position that you need, if it's a little bit higher or if it's lower like we are. And we have the same thing on this side. So we'll just start with our gas pedal, start with a light effort, just pushing from our toes, keeping my heel on the ground. Give me a light effort. Give me a little bit more, give me 50%. Good, give me 75%. And all the way up to 100 and hold it here. Good, trying to keep the rest of your body as immovable as possible. Even as we try to peel those toes up off the floor now. Good, just trying to create a little bit of space between my foot and the ground. From the front of my foot, my heel is still and always planted firmly into the ground. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good, settle in a little bit deeper if you can. And we're going to start with round 2, starting to press my toes into the ground. Give me a little bit more, 50%. 75, 100, and hold. Good, keep this 100% for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and try to peel your toes up off the ground and hold it here. Once again, trying to create the smallest gap as possible from the top of your foot and that front of your shin. Make a nice small space between those two for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Settle a little bit deeper if you can, trying to make that gap even smaller. And we have one more round here. Final gas pedal. It's going to be a little bit quicker. Let's push down that gas pedal. Easy effort. Give me a little bit more, 50% push. 75. All the way up to 100, and you're here for 10. Good. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing for another 5. And switch. Pull those toes up to meet your shin. Good. Keep pulling. I know it's harder to pull, but keep trying to pull for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. That'll wrap up a little bit of ankle work for today. Now we're going to put it all together. Final 3 reps of your squat. Really focusing on all the things we worked on today. A little bit of external rotation, a little bit of abduction, and some dorsiflexion. So we're set up in our final squat position for our last 3 reps. Take a breath. You might be out of breath, I know that we are. Start to squeeze, start to grip the floor, starting to engage your core, your hamstrings, your calves, whatever you need to start to pull you into a controlled, slow, deep squat. Noticing when you've hit your bottom and when you get there, try to keep your knees pushed out just like we did in the middle of this session. And slowly returning to the top. Let's go round 2, same thing. Remember to breathe. Might get a little bit shaky as you work through these last 3. Remember, we want a nice even pace. Same speed down, same speed coming back up. Good, final rep here. Actively pulling yourself, not just falling down into the squat, but pulling yourself into the deepest squat that you can get. And when you're there, pushing yourself back up to the top. Good. Remember to breathe. Nice work. That'll wrap up a mini mobility lower body session, focusing on the squat. There we go. That's all we have for today.